Thank you. Should we research a barbecue one for Brazil then? But I did try snus, to be honest, once, and I did have this sensation, the stinging one.
That's something is going on in my gums. That's it.
I really don't see the point in this at all, apart from like a burning sensation. Yeah, it's actually starting to get quite burny now, like uncomfortable. Okay, it's coming out. Okay, well, that was my first tobacco experience and my last. Ow.
What was this?
Just a normal non-tobacco snus.
A non-tobacco snus on one side, and then the sting-free on the other side, the same nicotine strength. This came out within, what, 20 seconds? Because why? It stings. This is still in. Doesn't sting at all.
Right.
Okay, this one, the red one, I can use it.
The sting-free one.
I can handle it. It hurts me. Yeah, me too.
Does anyone else notice the burning sensation?
Yes, it's a burning.
Yeah. And could you present yourself?
I'm Claudio from Brazil.
Right.
I come from Colombia.
Carmen from Spain?
Chris from Spain.
I'm Julio from Spain.
I'm Ignacio from Chile.
Have you ever tried Swedish snus? If you have, what did you experience?
Yes, I have tried it twice, and I had to remove the pouch after 5 minutes because of the burning sensation, which was quite unpleasant for me. That's what made me, remove the pouch. The main thing that annoyed me was the burning sensation.
Oh, by the way, Derek, have you ever tried snus or a nicotine pouch?
I have tried nicotine pouch. My good friend Sud had me trying it. And yes, it does sting.
Yeah. And what did you think about the stinging?
Yeah, no, I thought it was, I don't smoke, so I wouldn't use it, but I think it would be a big turnoff for people.
All right. So we're all here. Welcome, everybody, to CASAA Live. Thank you, everyone in chat. Lots of familiar faces. I hope everybody enjoyed that little intro video. We started the show a little differently today, but we do have a special guest with us. Before we get into any introductions, just shout out to a few people in chat here. Michelle, Addie, Mark, thank you guys for being here. Fa. Let's see, Adrian, thank you guys. Everybody tuning in on the replay, thank you for tuning in today as well. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the floor to Alex for all of Alex knows this wonderful human being far better than I do, so I will give him the floor for all the introductions.
Great.
Well, I've had the extreme pleasure of meeting Bengt at SnusCon a couple of years, and we think we've crossed paths at some of the other conferences, GTNF. Hopefully, we'll see you at eSig Summit in DC in April if you can make the journey. I promise you, I think you're like the happiest and nicest person in harm reduction advocacy or tobacco harm reduction advocacy, and you do a killer. Oh God, what was it? Was it Louis Armstrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. Karaoke night was a lot of fun. Bengt is the inventor of a product called Sting-Free Snus, which we'll be talking about, and also a tireless advocate for tobacco harm reduction in Sweden and the European Union, and really around the world. I mean, your work is global. So thank you for joining us today. I don't know whether to start with, say a few words, or we can just jump right into the background and contemporary issues.
Many thanks for introducing me to your show. This is my first YouTube live event ever. I'm Bengt Wiberg, a Swedish national, 66 years old, turning 67 this year. I'm an MBA. I'm an economist who worked as a CFO in Sweden, in Saudi Arabia, Italy, and Libya for many years. And I have a beautiful wife. My wife is Jane from Malta. Got 3 kids and 6 lovely grandchildren. And I just love. I quit smoking in 1991 in Saudi Arabia after seeing my family leave the last plane out of Saudi Arabia during the Gulf War. I just tore up my last cigarettes and stayed with snus. I do occasional vaping in the weekends. Any way to stay away from cigarettes is a good way.
Excellent. And I think we'll get back to Saudi Arabia after in a bit. But for folks who aren't familiar with snus and really, I guess, sort of nicotine pouches is kind of the evolution of that. But what can you give us kind of a brief history of Swedish snus and what the product has meant to Sweden?
Snus is the oldest tobacco harm reduction product ever. It's been used since the late 1700s in Sweden. And prior to that, in Sweden, we had a lot of tobacco farming in Sweden at that time. People, the noblesse, the very rich persons were using nasal snuff that came from the import, the import of tobacco from the Americas. And then the common man, it's not clear who invented snus, but by adding water and salt, you got a product that instead of placing it in your nose, you could place it under your lip. And the great thing was, this was back in the early 1800s. You could do a full day's work with your hands free and still enjoying nicotine under your lip. It was in the loose form where you place the snus like into a ball and place it under your lip. And in the 1800s, I think about 1 million Swedish people emigrated to the United States. And one of these persons was Joe Hill, a very famous trade union leader. His real name was Joe Hillström, but he changed his name when he came to the States. And somebody asked him, about building railways, and he is claimed to have answered, give me Swedes, give me snus, give me whiskey, and I can build you a railway through hell in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
And not much happened until 1967. Professor Curtin Sell, who was then the research manager of what is now Swedish Match, he came up with the idea that tea was freely available in the office. So he placed some loose snus tobacco into a tea bag, and he wrapped it up and he placed it under his upper lip, and all of a sudden the snus pouch was invented. And this is the most major innovation. You can compare it with the Horn Lick's invention of the e-cigarettes, because when you made snus, more hygienical, not running around your teeth, loose tobacco staying in place. I'm sure it has helped hundreds of thousands of people staying away from smoking. So the modern cousin of snus, which is a smokeless tobacco product, is modern oral nicotine pouches. The problem with this product, which is totally free of leaf tobacco, is that it doesn't have a common name. In the States, you call it modern oral or nicotine pouches, white snus or tobacco-free snus, nicotine pods. It has so many names. So if any one of you out there could come up with a great name to summarize this category, it would be simply great.
It just needs to happen on an online forum like vaping happened, because like that's kind of where the term vaping was invented, was amongst the community and online forums, because
right,
you know, there was no real term outside of e-cigarette, and a lot of people kind of wanted to veer away from the idea that this was a cigarette because it wasn't a cigarette.
No.
And somewhere along the lines, in the, you know, the vast sea of the internet and forums, the term vaping came to be.
No, that's what I love. That it's the grassroots that should lead the way.
I was asked the other day, Michelle asked, I was asked the other day, can you put one under bottom lip? I would think so, right? Does it matter which lip? Upper lip, bottom lip? Is there a difference in the way that they work?
No, this is bullshit. You can put a snooze upper lip, the downside lip, or up the cheeks, or wherever you want it, because the nicotine is water soluble, so it's absorbed by all the mucous membranes of the mouth. Actually, the quickest way to get a nicotine kick, if I may say so, is by placing it under your tongue for a minute or so before you place it on the upper deck or the downside leg. And this was told to me by one of the most well-known odontologists, dentist, expert of snus and oral health in the world.
Sure. I've never done that, but yeah, it makes sense. The soft tissue under your tongue and whatnot, and the I guess your veins, arteries, all of those things there, as opposed to what's in your gums.
But what the industry and most people don't know is that the gum itself. I saw your last podcast with your last video with Alex. You were trying to say the word the gingival retractions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I struggle sometimes.
So the gum, gingiva in sort of Latin, almost doesn't absorb any nicotine at all. So because it has keratin that we have in the nails, so it sort of blocks the uptake of nicotine. But nicotine is water soluble, so it's absorbed by the lip, by the cheek, all the mucous members of the mouth.
So it's not necessarily about like absorbing through the gum, but more of the gum and cheek and lip kind of just working as a placeholder for the product.
Yeah, that's right. But you have to watch out for your gum, because if your gum is destroyed, it doesn't regenerate. It doesn't grow back. If you bite your cheek or your tongue or your lip, it hurts like hell. But in a few hours, it will start to regenerate. But if you ruin your gum, it will be destroyed. The only way to fix it is by plastic surgery. And there's two methods, which is prolonging the gum that you still have here, and the other way is to do plastic surgery, to remove gum from another place in the mouth and changes. But compared to smoking, snus use and nicotine pouches is like a laughing matter because it doesn't kill you. There's not one recorded death due to snus or nicotine pouch use ever in history.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, it goes the same with vaping and e-cigarettes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I do vape as well on Saturdays.
There's an interesting point in there about when Swedish Match went to their first attempt at a modified risk order, and that involved changing the warning labels, which is actually something you have to take up with Congress, not FDA. And I remember one of the big hurdles, I think, for any oral nicotine product for modified risk is going to be proving that negative of proving that no one has ever gotten cancer from your product or something like that. Prove that it doesn't cause cancer. And, you know, I guess years and decades of epidemiology isn't enough for FDA. And so that was a bit of a stumbling block. But, you know, we do know that this is a very, very low risk product. And before we keep going in sort of the health issues, how to use and other things like that, I did want to, you know, get into the Swedish experience. And I think that dovetails into how you came to invent Sting Free. So could you briefly tell us about what is the Swedish experience and how did Sting Free actually come out of what you've learned about that?
Sure, I do that. The Swedish experience, I was, if I'm allowed to boast slightly,
Yes,
I was
please.
the first person ever to get the former FDA tobacco director, Mitch Seller, to admit that Swedish snus is actually that the FDA absolutely understands that the Swedish snus is how do you say epidemiologically proven to be a much safer product than smoking. This was at the Global Tobacco and Nicotine Forum in 2017. In 2019, the FDA approved Swedish snus, 8 brands of Swedish snus, as the first ever modified risk tobacco product ever in FDA history. Sorry, Alex, remind me. As I sort of got lost.
The brands that were the what was authorized by FDA?
Yeah, there was 8 brands of Swedish Match General snus.
Yep, I was about ready to draw that up and use it as a visual aid. Excuse me. It was the interesting thing about this authorization is, of course, that there are flavors other than tobacco authorized for snus, and so let me get the. Let's see here. We can share this, and there we go. I'll add this to the stream. There you go. You can find this on the FDA's site, and. Okay, this is MRTP. I don't know if they get into so with the modified risk order. Here's what they're able to say: using General snus instead of cigarettes puts you at lower risk of mouth cancer, heart disease, lung cancer, stroke, emphysema, and chronic bronchitis. I did not get to the authorization page just yet, unless you all want to watch me Google for it. But it was, I think, we're just going to do this. But you guys can keep talking while I.
All right.
Oh, it just did it again.
to dovetail off of, or I guess kind of to, I don't know, reiterate what Alex said about the Swedish experience, and then how that, you know, led to you inventing sting-free snus. How does that lead to you inventing your product, and what was the need for that product?
All right. I quit smoking in 1991 after sending my family out of Saudi Arabia during the Gulf War. In the last plane out of Saudi Arabia, I tore my last cigarette package out, and I kept using snus instead of smoking for until the beginning of 2000, about slightly more than 10 years ago. I started getting so much pain in my gums, I couldn't use snus. And I was fighting with myself, because if I couldn't use snus, I refused to go back to smoking for my nicotine. And at this time, e-cigarettes were not never heard of in Sweden, because it's a new innovation. So I went to the dentist, and he told me, you know, you have this gingival retraction, you have a snus lesion in your oral mucosa, you have a gingivitis, which is gum inflammation. He said, Bengt, you have to quit smoking. And I refused. I didn't want. You have to quit using snus. That's what my dentist told me. So I came up with this crazy idea. I put a Band-Aid on the gum side of my snus pouch, and I placed the protected side with the Band-Aid against my sore gums, and guess what happened? The stinging, the burning sensation disappeared immediately. And coming year, I went to my regular dentist visit, and he said, "Oh, Bengt, I can see you quit using snus." I said, "No, I just solved my problems." And after a couple of years of patching up my pouches with surgical tape, you know, you can take 2 layers of surgical tape and it will protect your gum. I got tired of this, so I wrote down a 8-page email to the CEO of Swedish Match, which is now owned by PMI. And just before pressing send, I thought, Bengt, you can't be the only person in the world who have experienced this burning sensation and problems with the gum. So I went to Startup Stockholm, government-funded, startup supporting agency. And they gave me state grants, tax-free, to investigate this further. So I went to Karolinska Institute. That's the organization that appoints the Nobel Prize in Medicine each year. And there were so many people who have experienced the same thing as me. And later on, it turned out my email to Swedish Match that was never sent became a patent application. So now Bengt Wiberg, the economist and non-smoker who quit smoking with snus, is now a patent holder in the United States and every country in Europe. That's some achievement for an old man, and I'm still smoke-free.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Nice. So how has, one of the things that I remember, some of the things that you've talked about, I think at conferences and we've talked about it, is that the availability of snus in Sweden helped to drive down smoking prevalence. I don't have the years, but I mean, ever since, probably 1964 on, we've seen reductions in smoking, I think, around the world with, I'm sure, a few pockets. But most of those reductions were in men. And I think, we had talked about, it was the stinging sensation that was actually kind of turning women off. And so you still had this sort of, imbalance in the people who were quitting smoking. And so is sting-free snus available like other snoozes in Sweden? And if so, have you found that women are turning to this product instead of cigarettes?
It's great that you brought up the gender inequality in tobacco harm reduction, because you in CASAA helped, what's her name? You made a survey, Cheryl Olsen.
Cheryl Olsen, yeah.
Yeah, and CASAA helped out to investigate, U.S. smoking women. What are the deterrents for them switching to smokeless tobacco or oral nicotine pouches? And one of the major key elements seems to be the burning sensation and the irritation on the gum. And looking out at scientific reports, there was a scientific report published in UK in 2022 showing that the use of tobacco-free oral nicotine pouches in the UK, only 1 out of 5 users were women. And I know for a fact the use of smokeless tobacco with actually tobacco in the United States, there goes 1 woman for every 20 male users. And I also know that less than 1 out of 4 women use products like Zyn or other nicotine pouch products. If you look at Eastern Europe, the figure is sort of like 80 to 85% male users. And why is that? That I think this is very important for the industry to listen to the grassroots and what do they think? What makes it easier for them to switch from smoking to oral nicotine pouch products or vaping for that matter? It's you have to listen to all the 1 billion users of nicotine to find out. And we have made surveys in my small startup company. It's me and my oldest son, Daniel Wiberg, interviewing more than 1,000 adult Swedish male and female users of snus and nicotine pouches, and 2/3 of the women answered that they think the stinging sensation whenever it occurs is unpleasant, and 55% of the men say the same thing. And when you ask the big tobacco industry players, we seem to get the answer, it's supposed to sting. That's in my opinion total bullshit, because the persons who answered our survey, 18% of the men thought that the stinging sensation, that's the greatest thing, and 12% of the women. But a great majority don't like it.
Sure.
So you take any product in the world, and you say it comes in this edition only.
Right.
But what if there are different opinions? Shouldn't there be clothes with or without Gore-Tex, or diet cola or regular cola? Personally, I'm a Coke Zero drinker. I think there should be options for everyone, and any way you can help a person quit smoking is a good way. Even nicotine replacement, e-cigarettes, heat-not-burns, snus, nicotine pouches, or placing whatever on the lips is a good way.
Yeah, I know. I say it all the time, and it's just it's the living embodiment, really, of CASAA is more tools in the toolbox. We focus a lot on e-cigarettes here in the U.S. just because that's a lot of our legislation. That's the hot topic here, and it has been for years. But we strive to put those points forward that all of these products, or I shouldn't say all, there are a few smokeless tobacco products that are that do have a bit of risk to them for sure. But any of these products that are safer than smoking, that's what we're here to try to drive people towards, or protect people's access to those products. Before we move any further, Alex looks like he's got something ready to go. I can see it on his face. Apathy Miller said, I like a little burn, but some can get overwhelming. And I am in this camp. I don't know how Alex feels about that. I've only had the opportunity to try like true Swedish snus a few times, and in different strengths. And I found that I liked the lower strength ones that had a bit of that sting. Just like with e-cigarettes, I use a 24 milligram freebase because I like that bit of a throat hit, that harshness, but not an overwhelming amount. There is a point where it becomes uncomfortable, and that's just too much for me. But I like that little bit of a sting to my snus, or the throat hit to my e-liquid. Is this something that like you've talked to? Are there a lot of people like that, or kind of like you said, the majority are like, no, I don't want anything like that? And do you miss that sting at all?
No, I don't.
No,
because my dentist made it very clear to me that I don't want my gum going upwards, and the stinging sensation is mostly due to the high pH level in these products, because the mouth has a pH level of 7 to 7.5, and snus, and especially nicotine pouches, has a pH level which is between 8.5 and 9. And the pH scale, I'm sorry if I bore some viewers, but it's
no, the more science, the better.
It's logarithmical. So the difference between the mouth pH of 7 and 8 is 10 times higher. And the higher the pH level, the more release of free nicotine, unprotonated nicotine. And unprotonated nicotine, free nicotine, is what gives you the nicotine pleasure very quick, and so on. But the higher you go in pH and also flavor concentrations, the more you risk to hurt your gums and your oral mucosa. So it's sort of a catch-22. Have you heard the expression?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a trade-off there. That higher efficiency and uptake comes with the discomfort and the negative effects as well.
That's right, and that's why I invented sting-free, because we have a protected side which is blue with a biofilm that blocks all the content of the nicotine, and the white side is absorbing nicotine and flavors just like everybody else. And by blocking whatever is in the content, and the content could be tobacco or all right.
Hopefully that I don't think the color came through on your screen.
No, they are blue on one side and white on one side. So I think I told you before that if you're having problems with the stinging, the burning, or your gums in general, try placing 2 patches of 3M micropore surgical tape or any on the surgical tape, and you will milden the effects.
So then, does your sting-free snus differ from other snus products in pH, or does it really come down to that biofilm that makes all that difference?
Yeah, no, it doesn't differ at all on the pH or the flavor concentration. It's all about, let's say you have a cut, you cut your finger on a piece of paper or whatever, and if you get salts or dirt into your wound, it will cause problems. But if you put a band-aid, you clean your wound and put a band-aid on, it will heal nicely.
Yeah.
So it's all about the pouch, really. And I'm a bit upset. I did write to the manager of FDA, who is a LinkedIn contact of mine, and I said, why is it so terribly expensive to apply for a PMTA with the FDA? I managed to get the US patent organization, USPTO approval for sting-free snus a couple of years ago. And they actually have a scheme, which is, if you're a small company or you're a micro company, you pay much less patent fees than if you are a big company. Why couldn't it be the same for FDA? Why should it cost $1 million or more to approve a product that could help millions quit smoking? It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I haven't gotten a reply from him yet.
And I know that, like, in the past, FDA has said that, I mean, those aren't, as far as I understand it, those aren't fees that FDA charges. I want to say, like, the application fee is probably in the hundreds of dollars, but it's all of the science and research that you have to go through to, support your application that runs into the millions. Not to mention the amount of time that all of that takes, and then you've got to have FDA sit around and put your application on a back burner while they get through all of the other stuff they have to do. But overall, I think, if there's a point that we've made, and a lot of people from the industry have made, it's that, products that are demonstrably safer than cigarettes should have an easier path to market. And the ability to build off of what other companies have submitted and what's out there in the literature, that should be something that should bring down the cost of just building the application to begin with. And I think FDA can actually do those things. They love to defer to the statute and say, well, our hands are tied, we can't make any changes. But with a product like, and I brought up the approvals what products were authorized from General. So you've got the loose dry mint portion, the original large classic blend, mint, Nordic mint, a white large, and wintergreen. So three non-tobacco flavors there have been authorized for Swedish snus, and yeah, that should tell you something, you know, as far as what states are doing going after any flavored product. It's a really bad idea. And before we get too sidetracked, I definitely wanted to kind of help make the point here. I'm not sure of the numbers, and I'm hoping that you have them. But you know, a lot of countries have goals for 2030 and 2050 in terms of where they want to be with smoking reduction. How's Sweden doing?
Sweden is world champion. The daily smoking rate in Sweden is 5.6%.
Is that across the board? Like all...
Yeah, male and 16 years and up to the day you die. So this is fantastic. And we would be under the WHO and the EU goal of 5%, maximum 5% daily smoking limit. We would be under it, but in Sweden, those not born in Sweden have a 250% higher male smoking rates than Swedes. But I'm definitely sure that in 2024 Sweden will reach as a whole, maximum 5% daily smokers. And talking about daily smokers, what does it give you? If we look in the European Union, Sweden has the lowest rate of lung cancers, oral cancers, the cardiovascular diseases, and you name it, far lower than any other country in the European Union. And I was reviewing the how to say, the some person in the United States was suing PMI and Swedish Match for their product Syn, and they mentioned oral cancer, and this is in my opinion total bullshit. Pardon my French, because
we speak French here.
The Karolinska Institute, the organization that appoints the Nobel Prize in medicine, they did a study on 423,000 Swedish males during 30 years, meaning 9.2 million life years. And they came to the conclusion that normal use of snus, which is 4 cans or less per week, actually reduces the relative risk of oral cancer with 35% as compared to never snus users.
Interesting.
So there you go. I don't want to comment on this lawsuit, but I think I think they are far reaching out.
I'll provide a brief comment. I don't know what the consequences are, but you know, I if it's the same one, I'm pretty sure it is. I believe the lawyers that are involved are the same ones that went after Juul. I don't know where they did it, but if you read, it's just the article that I had read. The reasons that they gave, their grievances with PMI are. It's basically a copy paste of the arguments about Juul, which is like there's just an excessive amount of nicotine and of course, you know, risks of oral cancer and other diseases, which is just totally made up. It's as if they never even really heard of the product until Senator Schumer said something about it.
They obviously didn't read the scientific reports. I would be happy to share them with anyone watching right now because I know the facts.
Another thing I want to touch before we get too far ahead was, and I'm going to share the link. We're not going to run the video because I think it might be a little quiet on the other end. But I'm dropping this in chat right now for folks to view later. This is featured on Planet of the Vapes, and this was a story about a snus maker in Ukraine. Could you talk a little bit about his work and how much snus has meant to Ukraine in the midst of Russian aggression?
I love to do that. The Russian aggression in Ukraine is, of course, well known around the world. I have a friend, one of my first EU for snus members, Ingvar, who had a small snus factory in Kiev in Ukraine. And the day after the war broke out, when the Russians tried to invade Ukraine, he volunteered as a soldier to defend his country and his family. And we keep in contact every 2 weeks in social media. I will not tell you how, because he's at the front at the whole time. But snus is allowed in Ukraine, and so is nicotine pouches. Whereas in Russia, Putin has banned both snus and nicotine pouches. And Ingvar, my Ukrainian freedom defender, told me that but by using snus, you become invisible. Whereas the Russian soldiers seems to be smoking, all of them, because they don't have any other alternatives. And the glow of the cigarettes in the dark is like a well-lit target for Ukrainian snipers. This is very tragic. I think most of perhaps the Russian soldiers are just forced to fight for Putin, but they are dying in big numbers because they are smoking. And Ingvar is a big supporter of snus and tobacco harm reduction. And last year at the UN opening event, there was a video shown with Ingvar that he sent to me. I made a video of his photos and him talking. That was shown in New York at the I don't remember what the place is called, but it had a tremendous impact.
Yeah, wow.
You're showing, perhaps we can share the link with it.
Yeah, the link to the let's see what we can. Here's the
so the link to the article for folks who may have not seen it, it is in chat for Facebook and on YouTube as well. And then Alex and I and Kristen will also make sure that link makes it into the video description for YouTube and Facebook and stuff as well.
And just drop the link to the video in chat.
Yeah, we'll definitely make sure that link is available in the description for replays and for everybody who wants to see that. That is an entirely new level of harm reduction that I didn't think of, and I don't think anybody ever thought of. The fact that you can't see the glow of somebody using snus is keeping them safer on the battlefield. It's not a beacon. That what you just said kind of blew my mind, to be honest with you.
No,
it's
it's
really incredible.
everybody heard about, smoking will kill you, or you will cut 10 years out of your life when you're very old. In Ukraine right now, soldiers are killed within a second because they are smoking.
Yeah. Wow.
Full stop. It's
Yeah.
Ingvar is a fantastic guy. What is not told in international media is that there are plenty of women fighting alongside, even as snipers, and you only sort of cover the male side of this, and the snus use is common in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And
wow.
So we've got probably about 10 minutes here left, and I definitely wanted to talk about some other stuff in terms of I guess adoption here in the United States. And I'm not sure what kind of market data you're following or have access to, but what do you know about the U.S. market? And I mean, we've seen obviously, our senator, my senator Schumer getting up and doing his Sunday afternoon press conference to rail against Zyn. But clearly the popularity is to the point where politicians think they can score points off of it. But I guess, what have you seen if anything, in terms of adoption in the United States? And also, what about youth use? Is this a product that's popular with young people in Sweden or in the United States, or really anywhere?
Senator leader Chuck Schumer has you guys nailed it in the last review. We said Chuck Schumer has done more advertising for Zyn than PMI ever did. I love that. And it's true. I mean, any how do you say, any advertisement is how to say, any PR is good PR.
That works.
But the thing going on in the United States right now, and other countries as well, is that you have these young people who are influencers, or all kinds of Zimbabwe or erections. You have these TikTok young people, and how can you stop them? How can you stop 1,000 young people, young adults like to talk about this subject? You can't ban them from doing that, but it's not the same as youth use. There was the let me check my paper. There was a survey done in 2023 in the United States showing that the daily use of nicotine pouches among young people, which is middle and high school students, were 1.5%.
Yeah. We had a graph up during our show. It was 1.7 was the, I believe, 7th or 8th all the way through 12th grade here, which is, and we talked about that. Like that's the epidemic. I don't know if Schumer used that word or not, but that was his call to go to war against this product, was one use in the last 30 days, bare minimum, among 1.7% of youth.
Yeah, that's an epidemic.
Yeah, heavy air quotes on that.
But it's totally silly. Tobacco harm reduction should not be political.
Agreed.
Why should it be political? In Sweden, about 90% of the Swedish parliament are pro-product tobacco harm reduction. We are, in Sweden, we have intelligent regulation for all products with tobacco or without tobacco. And 90% of the parliament is pro snus, nicotine pouches, e-cigarettes, heat-not-burns. And we have regulations, you have to be over 18. You cannot market these products to persons looking or under 25 years old. You have to register every product to the Swedish government. And it works. It bloody works. So for the rest of the world and for the United States, I say copy, paste the Swedish regulations.
Yeah.
Don't spend millions investigating something that you have no clue of what it is, because the world is big. We have 10 billion people in the world, I guess. And why should they come up with something new when you know that Sweden is the country in the world with the lowest smoking prevalence in the world and the lowest cancers, the lowest cardiovascular diseases in the world? Because we allow these products, but we regulate them. So the lack of regulation is, of course, a deterrent. There should be regulations, because otherwise politicians are tempted to just ban all. And I would especially like to mention the importance of flavors, because flavors are equally important for e-cigarettes, heat-not-burns, snus, nicotine pouches, or nicotine replacement products. But when it comes to packaging, we do lack one thing in Sweden, and that is there should probably be a cap on nicotine level, because when I see these often Eastern European brands with 150 milligram per gram nicotine content displayed in cans with cartoons on them that could interest my grandchildren, I say, if you want to curb youth use of these products, you should perhaps place a cap on the nicotine. It could be 20 milligram per pouch or 20 milligram per milliliter e-liquid. I don't know. Let somebody else decide. But you can't have these, Harrisburg, 3 Mile Island, super duper, kill you nicotine levels. It's not appropriate.
Yeah, we have a lot of conversation about that in the United States. Several states have tried to put nicotine caps on vapor products. I believe Utah just passed a bill that would cap nicotine at 40 milligrams per milliliter, which is, our argument has always been, the higher nicotine strength stuff is going to appeal to people who are trying to quit smoking. They're smoking a pack a day or 2 packs a day, and they need that higher nicotine strength. And from a, considering this should be a data and science driven conversation, for a state legislature to sort of arbitrarily decide we're going to lower that to 30 or 40 or whatever, it's not their place to do that. They don't have all the information, and they're not considering what consumers need. So we've been vocal about not implementing nicotine caps here, but I have seen some of I've used Siberia is a brand that has very high nicotine content. AJ Mall, who's from, I think he's in St. Louis. He posted a video many years ago of him trying Siberia. I think he sort of like double pouched it at some point,
Wow.
and it was a lot. And I've always sort of thought, given the discomfort that comes with a product like that, I've always imagined that would be a deterrent for young people, because it is I mean, unless you're, kind of a devoted nicotine user like myself, and which I can't tolerate that level of nicotine anymore. I've always thought, if you want to discourage kids from using stuff, make it painful. I don't know that they would actually keep coming back.
No.
And it can be a very unpleasant experience. But I
Siberia
do
is
see your point, and I know that Chad Jones had actually reviewed some of the Eastern European stuff, and it was kind of this race to, just race to the moon for nicotine content, and then all the flavors were just mint, and it was kind of gross, and it's really disappointing. So I imagine over time, the market and consumer preferences would take care of that. But I do see your point. And we do have to kind of push back a little bit when we start talking about nicotine caps, because that happens in state legislatures without scientific review.
It's up to everyone. I'm glad you mentioned Chad Jones. He's a good friend of mine who organized the SnusCon in 2017 and following years, snubby.com. But when if I have the need for more nicotine, I can put in another pouch, or I can add some e-cigarettes. But anything to stay away from smoking. What
I was just
else?
gonna add in that I've used those Siberia pouches. They were one of the few that I tried, and I don't remember. They were like 48 or 50 something milligram.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah, it was intense. It was the one can that I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make my way through this can or not. There definitely is a distinct difference in the way that you use pouches versus e-cigarettes, and your titration, the way you're able to titrate that use, as opposed to how long you have a pouch in versus how often you're puffing on an e-cigarette. So I would say there's definitely a discrepancy in where that nicotine cap idea comes into play between those two products, for sure.
Right.
But yeah, I'm on board with you. There are some really high milligram pouches out there, but that's also subjective, right? Like, there are people who use those pouches very regularly and rely on those pouches to stay smoke free. And I think that's also kind of been part of our argument here is, along the line of more tools in the toolbox.
I think it was Alex who introduced me to Juul 50 milligram in at SnusCon. And I liked it. I didn't crave nicotine for several hours, but when you go up to 150, 300 milligram, it's sort of killer strength that probably only young males who want to get stoned would use. So
and throw up and every other headache and things that comes with too much nicotine.
It's a problem. And if you have Donald Duck on the cover of the can, it sort of becomes distasteful in my opinion, and it might ruin producers who try to keep who don't boast this will blow your brain. Lethal. I've seen cans with lethal strength, killer strength. It's childish.
It feels like it sends the wrong message when we're talking about a product that is meant to save lives and is doing so. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, the other side of that coin is, one of the most popular bottled water products on the market is called Liquid Death.
and I love it. It's so good.
I
when
haven't seen it in Sweden yet.
we're talking about marketing, there is that engaging that rebellious or almost self-destructive part of us. It does tend to move products. So,
yeah.
I just wish we could do it without actually endangering people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, liquid death is water, like you said, which, I mean, to be fair, too much water can be dangerous as well, but
true.
Yeah.
Well, so we're sort of we're coming to the end here, and I feel like we could probably talk all night, but I feel like there's a bunch of stuff that we probably didn't touch on. So kind of want to give you the floor here and pick some things that maybe we didn't talk about enough.
I would like to recommend an international documentary called How Sweden Quit Smoking, made by We Are Innovation. And if there is anybody out there working for Netflix, I truly recommend this film. It's about 55 minutes of facts. I'm included in the movie along with professors and doctors and tobacco harm reduction advocates. I hope the world will see it. What else? I'm the founder of EU for Snus. Please follow us in social media. We have members from 100 nations, where 85% of the members have quit smoking for good. What else? Yeah, I mentioned Saudi Arabia in the beginning. That's where I quit smoking. And when I took up the job as the CFO of the world's biggest construction project, I had a whole suitcase full of 200 cans of snus. And when I came to the airport in Riyadh, the Saudi Arabia capital, it says big signs: death penalty to drug smugglers. And here I was. I came to the customs, and the guy looked at my snus. He sort of, opened the can, smelled it, and he was very serious. So he brought me to the customs officer in charge, and they were only speaking Arabic. And I understood. They asked me, "Who is your sponsor?" I said, "It's Sheikh Mohammed Al Amoudi, the second brother to the king of Saudi Arabia, Prince Sultan." And then he made a telephone call, and he was very harsh with me before, but then he sort of stood at attention with his phone in his head, and he said that, Mishkila, problem, very sorry. And they even carried my suitcase with snus out of the door. And the reason being that we were about 1,000 Swedes in this very important strategic project, making underground caverns for jet fuel and diesels and petroleum. So they couldn't risk the Swedes leaving, because if a Swede can't use his snus, he will go to a country where he can use it. And that's how snus has never been a problem in Saudi Arabia since then. And today we see a Badal company introducing Saudi-made nicotine pouches in order to help all Saudis quit smoking. It's incredible.
That is incredible. Yeah, wow.
It's sort of, it's sort of the, I don't know if this is Swedish Experience continuing around the world, but I remember that, when Sweden joined the EU had a ban on snus. It still has a ban on snus. And Sweden said it, as a condition of joining the European Union, we're going to keep our snus. If we don't like it, then say goodbye to our massive economy.
Yeah.
And so it is legal in Sweden. And really quickly on that note, could you talk a little bit about EU for snus and how is that going to get snus legal in the rest of the European Union?
No, I founded EU for Snus with a German friend, Uwe Hille, in January 2018, and we were invited by the New Nicotine Alliance in the UK to participate in the European Court of Justice trial on snus in Luxembourg. So we went there, and the EU lawyers kept saying, snus has nothing to do with the reason why Swedish males have quit smoking. It has to do with paternity leave. And another lawyer said, it has to do with Swedish males' healthy living style. And this is, of course, totally non-scientific and total bullshit, because the availability of snus and nicotine pouches and e-cigarettes is a major reason why Sweden has quit smoking. But since then, we have members from almost 100 countries, some very big celebrities. We have Greg Connolly, we have Alex, and the what do you got? The Winston man. So nowadays, what we have achieved is that when newspapers write about tobacco harm reduction, in the old days, 6-7 years ago, it was all about vaping. But now, whenever vaping and e-cigarettes are mentioned, snus and nicotine pouches are also mentioned, and I'm very proud of that, helping to contribute to the smorgasbord. Have you heard that word?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. To the smorgasbord of quit smoking.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And,
I mean, snus in Sweden is really just this massive example, and you included in that, in consumer innovation driving, quitting smoking. That's that it's just incredible.
Vape shops in Sweden are more or less, how do you say, tobacco harm reduction pharmacies, because they don't just sell vaping gear, juices and accessories. They sell snus and nicotine pouches, whatever you like, it's available. So copy paste the Swedish regulations on these products, and the world will have a couple of million less early deaths due to smoking.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Well, we've almost filled out an hour and a half here, and
wow,
I want to say
for that.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah,
we could keep going. I know we could keep going, but we want to be respectful of your time. It's late there, and we do want to round things out with a bit of our own legislative rundown. So stick around, and we'll get that taken care of. I don't know. Do we want to run a bumper for this, or just?
Do you want me to? Do you want the bumper?
Yeah, go for the bumper.
Okay, let's do the bumper. We'll roll that beautiful bean footage. All right, Alex. The floor is yours, because it's just insanity right now. I feel like I'm upside down 3 ways from Sunday when I start talking about legislation around the country right now.
So yeah, it is a bit nuts out there. I'm going to give everybody a shortcut in the chat. Brent Stafford, our friend from Canada, from regulatorwatch.com, had an interview with the folks from the Tennessee Smoke Free Association this week. And they go into, of course, talking about their association and what they've been doing in Tennessee. But also, which is, by the way, you'll get this in the interview. Tennessee Smoke-Free Association is, I believe, the oldest state association in the United States, and they have been very successful at keeping bad bills at bay. And so hats off to them. We've enjoyed working with them in the past. And of course, anything we can do to support their efforts, we're here for it. But one of the things to point out in the link that I just shared for regulatorwatch.com, they go into, I think it's like half a dozen states where these vapor directory bills have been defeated. And I have on a list somewhere here. So we've got, we had a couple bills in New Mexico that didn't go anywhere. There was a tax on vapor products and a flavor ban. New Mexico's legislative session adjourned on the 15th of February, so they're done. We also had a vapor directory bill or PMTA registry, did not move far enough in Washington. Their session ended on the 7th, and there's a few others. Unfortunately, Utah saw the passage of what is just sort of a kitchen sink kind of bill. There's a flavor ban, vapor product directory, and that nicotine cap that we were talking about. So we're trying to get more details on what more we can do about that, perhaps urging a veto. I'm still waiting on details there. Speaking of vetoes, if you live in Florida, it's a good opportunity to check out our call to action on that. We are urging a veto of, I believe it is H1007. That did pass. There's an amendment in there that kind of changes things a little bit, but it still puts a lot of power in the hands of the Attorney General to make decisions about what can and can't be on the market. And there's some very vague language about risks to young people that you could basically, if you're a zealous Attorney General, you could apply that to a lot of things. So it's, even though it was amended, it feels a little bit better than it did when it was introduced. It's still not great, and Ron DeSantis should just veto the thing. So if you're in Florida, take action now and go to our website and check out the call to action for Florida. Other than that, this is a really tough year to keep. Oh, I'm sorry, Bengt, go ahead.
No, I just remember the most important thing of all. If anyone Googles, does nicotine in itself cause cancer, you will get the reply from FDA, from Cancer Organization, even the World Health Organization. Nicotine does not cause cancer in itself. And this is the most important message, I think, to the whole world. And I am sure, I know actually, that this message will be forwarded during 2024 worldwide. So if you're a safer nicotine user, don't worry too much, because it will not give you cancer.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do in the United States and around the world. I think realigning at least, doctors' perceptions of risk with what is the reality. I know that Mitch Zeller talked about that a lot. Folks from FDA have talked about that being a real issue, especially when they're trying to recommend, approved nicotine replacement therapies. Some doctors are out there, they're reluctant to help their patients out because they have this misperception of risk of nicotine. And certainly all of this stuff that we're seeing in states is not helping that. But, the long and short of it, not to drag this out much longer, is if you live in a state and you're in the United States, go check out our website, CASAA.org, click on the Get Involved tab at the top of our website and go to the state and local issues. Click on the clicky map of the shape of your state and see what we just got to scroll down a little bit and you'll see the calls to action there. I think about half the country is looking at these vapor directory bills. And in a lot of cases, I think Utah was a good example. Some of them have language in there that specifically exclude with synthetic nicotine products that were that had that 2022 deadline. But there is, of course, and I feel like this is kind of a myth out there for a lot of people. Right now, today, if you are a nicotine tobacco company, whatever, and you have a new product, you can submit it to the FDA for PMTA. And I believe that, companies have to go through getting some permission in order to put things in test markets. So you should be able to, do the research that you need to do to get your PMTA through the process. Fingers crossed, I guess, at this point. And that can happen at any time. So there may be a misperception out there that the market is just sort of, forever frozen in place, but that's not according to the statute. But it kind of doesn't matter that much anyway, because FDA just is not authorizing things that we want. That's the big news. Sorry that I didn't get into the sort of specifics on the states, but it is a long list, and I'm sort of always every day trying to keep updating these things. Just go check it out and get involved. Tell your friends. Visit CASAA.org. And I'm going to pitch it over to you, Logan, for all the outro spiel.
The spiel. Okay, I did drop in chat for everybody for YouTube and Facebook the link to the state locator and get involved page. It's super easy. Everybody, again, like Alex said, if you live in a state, you just click on it, you scroll down. Any open calls to action that we have up will be right there available to you. Also, at the bottom of that clicky map page is 5 or 6 pages of calls to action that we have ongoing right now. The list for states that don't have a call to action, I think at this point, are probably shorter than the list of states that do. So please, head over to CASAA.org. It's absolutely free to become a member. We don't blast you with emails every day, just what you need to know, when you need to know it, to get involved, to be the best advocate that we can all be together, because that's CASAA. That's CASAA. Every one of us together is CASAA. So thank you for becoming a member. While you're there, you can submit your testimony, share with the world what these products have done for you or for your family, for your friends. Those testimonies are critical. The most powerful thing that we all have is our voice, is our story. And we always encourage you to share those things. If you're so inclined to support CASAA and help us continue to do what we do, there is a donate option available on the site. There is also a merch store that our president, Danielle Jones, has worked very hard to create really cool t-shirts and really cool designs, so you can be a walking billboard of tobacco harm reduction. And again, you can share that. They make great gifts. If you don't know what to get your friend who vapes something for Christmas, or your dad or your mom or something, buy them an awesome CASAA t-shirt. Always a great idea. I want to thank Bengt for being here on the show and talking with us about snus, about your product, about the history of snus, what this has done for Sweden and around the world, and how important this is. And this tool, again, that tool in the toolbox, because that's, what we care about, is having options for people. And I think that one of the great things here and with you is that even for people who were interested or are interested in snus or oral tobacco products, but were deterred by, the sting and that sort of thing, that you've brought another tool. You've innovated on something that has already done so much to provide yet another tool for people. And I can't thank you enough for that. I think, the world couldn't thank you enough for that, even if they don't know it yet. So thank you so much for being here and talking with us. This has definitely been a lot, and
it was a great honor to be part of this live video. And for all the people out there, if you like to know more about sting-free pouches, please visit stingfreesnus.com. And if you are supporting tobacco harm reduction and you are using any form of oral smokeless tobacco, please join EU for Snus. You will find us in every social media, and especially thanks to CASAA, which is a great organization. You have done so incredibly much for tobacco harm reduction. I lost my words.
Thank you.
I think otherwise the only other thing here is Facebook. If you're on Facebook, I know you know, as millions of you are, and you haven't been over to your CASAA state page, please join that as well. There's a lot of stuff going on state pages. There's a lot of folks out there keeping an eye out along with all of us. It's a great place to get involved, to stay involved. We rely on those state pages just as much as everybody else there. So please get involved in every way that you can. Follow CASAA all over the place. Follow Bengt. Follow EU for Snus. Do all the stuff. Follow us everywhere. And I think that's the spiel. I don't know if I missed anything. I feel like half the time I get started in the spiel and then I divert somewhere and I forget half of it. But I think I've covered most of the bases.
I think you nailed it.
I think I nailed it.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's usually the Facebook state pages.
Usually, yeah, Facebook's usually where I leave it off because I don't personally use Facebook, but from what I hear, a lot of people do. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll call it there. Bengt, stick around. We got to download your video feed, and we'll be back here in 2 weeks, possibly with a guest or possibly with some massive controversy in tobacco harm reduction. But thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for your discussion. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for liking and sharing and telling your friends about the wonderful world of safer nicotine products and how people just don't really have to keep smoking anymore. We've got a lot of options out there. So thank you all. Thank you, Bengt. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, Kristen. And
thank you all.
See you guys in a couple of weeks.
Be excellent, everybody. Be excellent to each other and be excellent to yourselves. We'll see you guys next time.
And enjoy nicotine.